These are the notes and activities for Thursday and Friday of this week. I'm going on a college visit with my daughter. And so you should have picked up the warm-up problem and started working on that. We're going to cover two different topics today, along with reviewing what we did on Monday and Tuesday. So starting on the warm-up, go ahead and pause the video until you have it completed, and then you can check your answers. But remember, when we're doing greatest common factor, we're looking for the biggest number that goes into all three, and then the highest power that's in all three. So in the first one, I know that 2 goes into all three numbers, and the highest power that goes into all three is x. And to get your values that are left over, you can write it like this, dividing all of them by 2x and then reducing, or you can just unmultiply. So 2x is the greatest common factor. What's left, when I multiply this, I should get back what I started up there. So 6x to the third minus 4x plus 2x. We're just undoing the multiplication. Looking here, highest power or highest number is a 2. They're all even. Highest power is x squared. When I take a 2x squared out of all of them, this is what I get. These all have 3 that go into them. Usually I start with the smallest number and see if it goes into the other one. 6 goes into 12, but not into 9, so then you get a little bit smaller than that. Highest power is x. So 3x is the number. Again, you're undoing your multiplication. Starting here, 6 is the smallest number. If it goes into both of these, that'll be my greatest common factor. So 6 is the greatest common factor. It goes, then the highest power that is all of them, or the lowest power overall, is x. Doesn't change if there's 4 numbers, just have to do this, check 4 times. You might want to do is start with the lowest number and say, okay, does it go in the other two? I know it goes into 32 and 40, it does not go into 20. So break down the lowest number a little bit more. Well, I know 8 is 4 times 2. So just see if 4 goes into all of those, and it does. It helps you decide a little bit. X squared is the lowest power. If you make a mistake and don't pick the greatest common factor, you can always take out another factor as well. Same here, we have 4 different things. Start out with the 9 and see if it goes into 27, yes, 18, yes, 54, yes. So I know I can use that 9. The variable is actually the easier part. Okay, so you're done with your warm-up. You should be now switching to the stapled packet. Oh, sorry. This is if you didn't check your homework in class on Monday and Tuesday. You can check it real quick. Now let's switch to the stable packet. So we did the warm-up. We're going to do factor by grouping, notes and practice. We'll do difference of squares, and then you'll have time to get caught up on. So just remember what we did on Monday. We looked at the 3 terms. We took out the biggest number and the highest power that's in all of them. That's what you just did for your warm-up. That is all we are going to be doing with factoring by grouping. Okay, so factoring by grouping, the key here is the number of terms you are given. If there are 4 terms, because we're going to get a bunch of factoring methods, if there's 4 terms, factor by grouping is probably what you're going to use. So this is on your notes on the stapled packet. So what I'm going to do is look at the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. And I'm going to take the greatest common factor out of the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. I'm breaking them up into 2 groups here. So the greatest common factor is x squared. The greatest common factor there is 2. So you end up writing it like this. Now I would write a plus 2 there. So if you look and multiply this back out, you just get back to where we were. A couple things to notice. The 2x plus 3 is in both of them, and the x squared plus 2 is in both of them. or is it multiplied times the 2x plus 3? So that is where our factors come from. I always draw these little v's. So whatever is here, as long as this factor is the same, we're kind of going backwards from there. If you want to check to see if you got the right answer, you just multiply it right back out. 2x to the third plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 6. And then you have that amount. So we're going to go through the rest of these examples here. Go ahead and record them on your paper as we go. If I'm going too fast, just pause it and fix it. So we group the first two terms. And the second two terms. And take out the GCF of the first two, which is 5p squared. And that leaves me with 3p plus 2, and I take out the greatest common factor of the second term, and this sign is important, and that is a 2. The other thing that's important is you can't go on if these aren't the same. If these aren't the same, you didn't pick something right. So I have these two and these two. That's my factors. Second problem. Group first two, group the last two. V squared leaves me with 4v minus 3. Now this is a negative. I'm going to say always take a negative out of there. So I take out a negative 2. So whatever GCF is, just make it negative. Leaves me with 4v minus 3. So again, these are the same. As long as they are the same, I can go on and write my factor. So v squared minus 2, 4v minus 3. Pair them up. First two, greatest common factor is 2x squared. Leaves me with 2x minus 5. Now you'll notice that sometimes you can kind of look at this and say, I know I got to get that. Well, this is already 2x minus 5, so that's just a 1, but you do need to write the 1. So I have 2x squared plus 1, 2x minus 5. Those are my two factors. Got to introduce the y here, but again, it's 4 terms, so follow your same rules. Pair those up, take a 2x out, 3y minus 2. I already have a 3y minus 2, so I'm going to write just plus 1 there. These are the same, these are the same. 2x plus 1, 3y minus 2. Again, more letters, just be careful with your GCF. So I can take a 3a, and it leaves me with 2z plus 3c. And be careful, just make sure that's right. And then I'm looking over here, that's negative, so I'm going to put a minus there. I can see there's a 2, there's a b in both of them. So that would leave me with 2z plus 3c. And you can always check to make sure by multiplying that back out. So 3a minus 2b, 2z plus 3c. Those are the examples. So right now you're going to pause the video and then finish the problems that go along with that. When you're done with those problems, you get up and go see the teacher for the answer key and check your answers before moving on and ask any questions you have, fix any problems on there. So the second thing we're going to learn is difference of squares of a polynomial. The first thing we learned was grouping, and that had 4 terms. Difference of squares is a special case as well. Okay, it's just a little remember, difference means subtract. Squares are perfect squares. So things like 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. These are perfect squares. 16, there's 25, and so on. There's a whole bunch of them. On your calculator, if you want to find squares, you can use the little squared button or take the square root to see if something is a square. Square root's the little check mark looking thing. With a variable, perfect squares are just any even power. So anytime that the exponent is even, that's a perfect square. So I'll show you just a couple examples here. I know that's a perfect square and I know that's a perfect square. And so what I do is I see there's a minus, so that's a difference of two squares. I take the square root of x squared, which is x, and the square root of 9, which is 3. And then your answer is x plus 3, x minus 3. We did some examples like this when we did multiplication, because look, when you multiply it back out, you get x squared minus 3x plus 3x minus 9. And that's equal to 0. So that's how we got back to two terms. I said we talked about this special case. What happens now, we're at the reverse form of it. So right here I have two perfect squares. The square root of 4x squared is 2x, and the square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 4x squared is 2x and 6. So we just leave it like that. Plus 6 and minus 6. Now you may have noticed in this problem, in your old factoring method stuff, that there is something you can do first. You can actually take a 4 out and you get x squared minus 36. So that is also a perfect square, which is x minus 6, x plus 6. Notice it doesn't matter if the minus or plus comes first. You kind of get whatever method you do. I'll probably do both. This is the complete factored form. If you left it as this, you're not completely factored because you could still take a 2 out of each of those, which is where the 4 comes from. Last one here, square root of 81, x is squared is 9x, square root of 49 is 7. So minus 7 plus 7. So again, fill in your rules here. So now that you know some stuff, to factor the difference of squares, you just take the square root of one term, plus it, one term minus. Again, it doesn't matter which one's minus, which one's plus. So there's a couple factors. Again, even powers are perfect squares with exponents. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some more notes to this. So square root of y squared is y, square root of 5 is 5, or 25 is 5. So y and 5 minus plus. Square root of 16u squared is 4u. So I just write it. Square root of 9 is 3, plus 3 minus 3. That is an even powered exponent, and 4 is a perfect square, so I have 2z squared. And I have 1 and 1, so plus 1, minus 1. Sometimes I do the minus, sometimes I do the plus. Square root of 100h squared is 10h. Square root of 36 is 6g. So minus, plus, plus, minus. If you notice, they're both even here. So I go back, oh, I could have taken out the greatest common factor first. Sometimes you don't see it right away. You get into factoring. So what goes into both 100 and 36? Well, I know 2 does. Then 4 does as well. So I could take a 4 out first. And that leaves me with 25h squared minus 9g squared. So 4 times 5h minus 3g, 5h plus 3g. If you notice, if we would have taken a 2 out of each of those, 2 times 2 is 4, that's what you get. Sometimes you don't notice it till after you factor. So these are pretty straightforward, looking for a minus. There is a special case. You might look at this in the middle of doing these problems and be, oh, that's x, and that's 3, and that's x, and that's 3, and you're doing this plus minus, and then you get to this problem, and it looks exactly the same as this one, except this has a plus. We do not have a formula for sum of two squares, so if you see any pluses, you write prime, or you factor out the GCF, but that's all you can do. So this is a difference, so I can write it without worrying about it. This one is a difference, so I can write it without worrying about it. Now I'm going to write this, and I see I can still take a 2 out. So that leaves me with 4 times x minus 2, x plus 2. It's easier if you can take it out at the beginning, but you can always take it out at the end. So I get to this one, and I don't write prime because I can still take a 4 out. I can still do GCF. So I always want to try to do the GCF first. Sometimes I forget. So you're going to practice these. Again, be careful if you see any plus signs. But mainly you're finding the square roots of each of them. They're practicing and getting in the right order. And then when you're done, see the teacher, grade your answers again. So you can pause this while you work on it. When you are done with everything from the notes, you have the weekly review number 10, which was this week's weekly review. You know where the keys are in the binder. Grade it. Do not turn it in if you don't show work. I'm not going to give you credit. So finish it first if you need to, but grade it and turn it into the right folder in the turn-in folder. And then go on Khan Academy. This is if you missed Monday or Tuesday, you might need that video. This is optional. I'm going to take it down after a little bit. But on the staple packet, there's a place for you to record your percents. Remember, 100% is 5 points. 75% shows up as red is 4 points, and 50% is 3 points. Anything less than that is no points. So get those things done while you have a little bit of time. And if you still didn't do the e-learning, there's 6 questions there on the e-learning. Okay, so that should be enough to finish up your class period. See the teacher. The teacher can help you if you have questions. This is just to help be a guide.